All right, welcome everybody to the December 6th, 2021 Battleground City Council study session. Tonight we're going to be talking about with our Public Works Director, Mark Hersig, and he's going to be presenting information on our ADA transition plan. Mark, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, everyone. We're actually going to have a consultant do the presentation, but I don't see them quite this second. I can get started with it if they don't pop up. So let me share my screen. Everyone see that? So a little bit of background on the project. The project was initiated in May of 2021. The first step that was completed was the self-evaluation. That's essentially going around and looking at all the ADA ramps, sidewalks, those sorts of things. That was completed in September of 2021. And then after all that data was collected, the draft plan was put together, and that was completed late last month. Why is the plan important? So it's required by law. Title II of the ADA program in 1990 requires it. The goal is to take positive steps towards accessibility, helps public agencies reduce but not eliminate the potential liability associated with lack of compliance. And then compliance allows persons with disabilities to fully participate in civic life. According to the US Census, 9.2% of residents under 65 have a disability. So the process that we went through, we had public outreach, which ensures community priorities are reflected in the plan. And we did an online survey in October of 2021. Then a standards review was done. So they essentially looked at like our policies, our standard details, those sorts of things. And then, as I mentioned, there was data collection. They collected the data on the city's right of way. We have over 111 miles of sidewalk, nearly 3,000 curb ramps, 116 signal push buttons, 1,600 crosswalks, 27 bus stops, and 6 rail crossings. And all this data was collected in GIS. After that was all collected, there was a prioritization done. Essentially prioritize the barriers according to severity of the issue and proximity to community destinations such as community services, hospitals and medical facilities, and government buildings. Cost estimating was done. That was estimated using recent bids and planning level assumptions. And then costs including design, mobilization, traffic control, construction management, and et cetera were included. Then a draft transition schedule was developed, and essentially the plan focuses on the highest priorities first based on the ratings. Based on what was found, there's about 24 million in low priority improvements, 52 million in medium improvements, 30 million in high improvements, and then 10 million in very high improvements for a total of 117 million. Plans always focused on the highest priorities first, which is the 10 million that are classified as very high. You develop a program for barrier removal that monitors and adjusts. So we identify projects for a 5-year program. We monitor the removal activities through that period, and then we reevaluate in 5 years. The schedule laid out, so we went through averages for about 5 years and looked at what we did. So we have, stuff we do through our capital project, stuff we do for overlays, we get grant funding, and then maintenance. And so we estimated that on a typical year, we could spend up to $275,000 making these improvements. In order to meet the very high projects, there's a list of what extra we would need to spend over different transition periods. So if we were trying to take care of all the very high projects in 20 years, we would want to spend an additional $420,000. If we were okay with it happening in 40 years, we would spend an additional $150,000. What is the right number? So it's not specified by law. It depends on the jurisdiction's financial abilities. The spirit of the law is showing good faith effort to comply, and there's also a risk management component. The recommendations and next steps is to update the city's design standards to match ADA standards, establish a citywide APS policy. So APS are the push buttons at the signals. And so that would be bringing those up to date. Educating staff, consultants, and contractors on ADA standards. Add requests for service process to allow public to request accommodations. Develop MEF documentation database. And that's the maximum extent feasible. So there are situations where you can't perfectly meet ADA law, and that's okay as long as you document it. So it would be putting that into effect. So if that issue popped up, we would have documentation that we did the most that we could. Developing performance measures and monitoring processes, evaluating all city programs and activities as they relate to ADA, and possibly increasing funding to accelerate barrier removal. So that is the end of the presentation. I believe our consultant popped on. Let me check for a second.
Mark, I'm here. This is Ryan.
Ryan's here.
Apologize, my Zoom was sending me to a completely different meeting for some reason, so finally got it figured out and I'm here now.
So yeah, that was the presentation. We'd be happy to answer questions, and I'll defer to Ryan on most of them. He put together the plan for us, so.
Deputy Mayor Johnson, feel free to jump on in.
Mark, you buried the lead, didn't you, of the 25 pages you sent to us? I saw a number of 161 million.
What did I say?
117. You're off by about $44 million. I understand, you know, in city terms, that's just couch cushion money. But 161, I believe, was the total I saw at the end of the presentation that you sent to us, the 26 pages or whatever it was.
As far as I know, the plan should be correct. There's probably just a typo in the presentation.
That's correct, and that's on me. I was putting this presentation together, and the right number is the one that's in the plan.
Thank you. So this were the ladies walking the streets with the vest on and the tape measures. That's what they were doing.
Correct. Yeah.
And so my neighborhood was built in roughly 98 to 2000. Are my ADA ramps now passé? Or
You want to answer that, Ryan?
Sure, not necessarily. So the standards that we use to evaluate these facilities were number one, the 2010 ADA standards. Those were basically an update of standards that were previously in effect. The other standard that we use is the U.S. Access Board guides for public accessibility in the public right-of-way. Those are technically they're in draft form still, and they are a guideline, but federal highways and other agencies have adopted those standards as best practice. And in case law, it's been established that in the absence of a standard, best practice applies. And so we look at these facilities both in terms of the standard, the 2010 standard, ADA standard, but there are certain situations, actually a lot of situations in the public right-of-way where that standard, there's no standard in the 2010 document for sidewalks, for example. And so we go to the what we call PROAG, U.S. Access Board guidelines for right-of-way.
so that I understand this, so any what I have currently, I mean, 10 years from now, will someone come to us and go, yeah, no, that doesn't work anymore. It needs to be this. Is that what's coming?
No, probably not. And you know, standards have changed throughout the years, but the main standards have, in terms of slope and widths and that type of thing, they've been pretty consistent. There are a few minor things that have changed through the years, but I don't see a situation in 10 years where standards will have changed so dramatically that you may have to be replacing things that we haven't marked during this study.
And then Mark, so as we see all the new developments going in, I assume then they're meeting the 2010 guidelines for you know, whatever the width of that book is.
Correct.
And so we don't have any problems with anything that's gone in within the last, how many years would you estimate? Since 2010?
Yeah, looking at the maps, most of what the main issues I've seen with some of the newer stuff is issues with trees. So if you've had a tree push up the sidewalk, that causes an issue that would have been documented on this. But yeah, so a lot of it's sort of those sorts of things, but your typical ADA ramps and that, from what I've seen from the maps, all look good. So that means the inspector's doing his job and making sure that stuff's getting done.
So this company then did us the service because some year ago or more, we were going to send our folks around to look at sidewalks and upheaval. So this company has gone through now and gosh, there was 110 miles of sidewalks, you said. They certainly didn't walk 110 miles. If they did, God bless them. But have they gone through and picked up all the upheavals?
Yes, Ryan might be able to explain the process a little bit more, but the long and short of it is they kind of looked at it, say from one block to another block, looked at it, tried to get a representative section. So if there was an issue like that, they picked it up. So in a couple of the newer subdivisions, I know on the mapping, they're picked up where there was that situation. So yeah, they kind of killed two birds with one stone where, we're documented for the ADA transition plan, but we also now have a record of spots where that issue exists.
So, which brings me to my next question then. Those sidewalks are the responsibility of the homeowner.
Correct.
And at that point, when we were talking about this a year ago, we were going to send our folks out and then we were going to send letters to follow them out. Aaron, will we be looking at whatever Mr. Peterson has found? And will we be sending letters out then to these folks stating that the upheaval needs to be repaired?
Yeah, I think we haven't looked at that as a whole. We'll need to have a discussion on how we want to approach that.
But the codes.
The code indicates it is the responsibility of the homeowner, yes.
Okay, so at some point in the coming year, then that's probably coming our way. And I know this probably, Mr. Peterson didn't have anything to do with this, but if you remember, Mark, some years ago, I guess maybe 4 now, maybe more, we were on the hook for replacing every sign in the city that wasn't reflective enough. That was 4 or 5 years ago, and we were supposed to have it done within 2 or 3 years, I believe. So we're well past that. Is just as an aside, even though this isn't Mr. Peterson's business, are we still on the hook for that, or is that just gone away?
No, so there's still requirement to do that, but you can have a program in place to essentially do some at a time. There's nothing that's there's some leeway in doing it in a timely manner. A city doesn't have to spend its entire streets budget fixing signs. As long as they're making progress towards doing it, you're allowed to kind of do it at your pace. So that's what we've been doing. So this I kind of see very similar, as long as you're making progress towards it, you're, I guess, putting your best foot forward, you're generally safe.
And then my final question will be, at 117 million, ain't no hope. I understand that it's, you do the best you can. So we have taken whatever, $35,000, I believe is what we paid for this, give or take $1, I can't remember. So we're going to take our whatever 45 pages, 50 pages, it will go into a file cabinet, and we will have met the requirement for this go around. Is that what we've done?
So what we will do is this will help guide us with, like I said, we're spending a lot of capital dollars when we get grants. Our street overlay, anytime we do a mill and fill or overlay type, we have to replace the ADA ramps along those. So that will help guide us when we're doing those sorts of projects to make sure we take care of any of those issues as we do those. We can also look as if funding's available, increasing it. And that's kind of what those options were, that, if you spend a little bit more than kind of what we're doing on average, you could take that down in 10, 20, 40 years, whatever it may be.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mr. Peterson.
Can I say something real quick about that last question?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Peterson.
So the requirement is to be ADA compliant. And so the transition plan is the plan for you to do that, basically. And so if you at the end of this exercise, if it does, so to speak, just go to the shelf and sit there, that doesn't fulfill the requirement. What they really want to see is dried pavement or dried concrete, basically. They want things being fixed and that type of thing. And so, the plan in and of itself doesn't fulfill the requirement. It's what you do with that plan going forward and showing real intent in, becoming more ADA compliant and changing the way that you do things to make sure that you're considering the results of the plan in what you're doing. That's really what the requirement is, basically.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Councilmember Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mark, when you look at this number, that seems to be pretty daunting number, especially when we've talked in the past about our road projects and what we need for preservation on the current roads that we have, and it was roughly $2 million a year over 10 years. Is that what we figured?
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially 2 million. Our plan is I believe a 5-year plan, but that number is going to stay the same, for quite a while out.
Yeah. And so I guess the question I have is, how do we, we're what I would consider a small city. When you look at, Vancouver next to us and there's Vancouver and then there's the rest of the small cities and even the county is a large city. When you figure Hazeldale and Salmon Creek and those areas. So when I look at this number of 117 million, how do we ever get to that point? How do we ever pay for this and move in the right direction? And over a 20-year plan, obviously these were built to did someone say a 94 standard? Some of this was a 94 standard. Is that what I heard somewhere there? Before the 2010, what was the standard before 2000?
It might have been 94. I can't remember what the previous year was for the standards, but there was this previous standard. And if you have documentation that was constructed to that standard, you can use that. Also, okay. We're not saying that a ramp 20 years ago has to be built to these standards. If you have documentation and proof that it met the standard at the time.
Okay. And that's my concern is when we look at a 20-year plan, there's a very good chance that within the next couple of years, there could be another standard, that comes out and they change those standards. And so on a 20-year plan, even trying to fix some of this stuff, we're going to be behind again, 20 years down the road. And so, I get it. I get where we're coming from, and it's important. There's not one person on council that is needing these ramps like somebody that would be blind or someone that's in a wheelchair or someone that's immobile and trying to get around the city. I was in Coeur d'Alene here a couple of weeks ago and walking down a sidewalk in the middle of the night with no street lights and had some elderly people with me at the time, and it was quite interesting to try and navigate those sidewalks and the cracks and the trees and the issues that we've had. So I get that. We used to have someone that used to come to our council meetings quite often and advocate for these because they were blind and they were going around, and until you're blind and using a cane to get around, we really don't know what that's like. So my concern is just like, how do we start to tackle this? How do we find the funding to tackle this? Grants are good. Yeah. But if we're at 117 million for a city the size of us, I can't imagine the grants that cities like Vancouver or the county or places like that are trying to go after also. And every time we go back to Washington, D.C. and we start talking grants, those grant funds are very small compared to going out and bonding and building these. So, I like where we're going. It's a good plan. But what's our next step in your opinion, Mark? What are you wanting us to do?
At this point, it's it's hard. It's kind of very similar to the conversation we had about the street preservation. You know, we're, even with how much we added this year, we're still, you know, at 750,000 when we need a couple million. You know, there's the option out there of the sales tax through the TBD. There's also, you know, we've talked before about how Oregon has the ability to treat streets as a utility. And that's honestly a legislative issue. You know, right now you can't do that in Washington. In Oregon, you can. And, you know, a lot of Oregon cities have been able to absolutely eliminate their backlog of street issues, you know, and I'm sure some of them use it for ADA issues as well. But, you know, until legislatively you have that ability, you know, that's not something we can do. So I think our one option is through the TBD sales tax route. You know, that can be used for both this and street preservation. So, you know, until legislatively they make a change, we're pretty limited.
Okay.
Can I say something real quick about that 116 million?
Yes.
So there are a lot of caveats to that $116 million. That's a very conservative number. So I don't want you guys to get hung up on that 116 million. That what that represents is, you know, basically becoming completely ADA compliant throughout the city. We went through and we measured, we identified every crack in the sidewalk that didn't meet the standard. And so, I mean, it was very extensive. And in reality, you're always going to have some cracks in the sidewalk. You're always going to have a tree that pushes up, you know, and so there's always a certain level of non-compliance that you're going to be dealing with. The other things to consider also is that we just looked at what's there right now that we could measure. A couple things that are going to reduce that number quite significantly is one, the issue that we just talked about, that if you have documentation that it met a previous standard, you can take that off of the list. Two is this idea of maximum extent feasible, building the facility to the maximum extent feasible. There's some areas where you just can't meet ADA. If there's a real steep slope on the, you know, on the roadways, you're not gonna meet your ramp slopes and your, you know, cross slopes on your sidewalks and stuff. So we didn't consider that in the field evaluation because it'd be a much more labor intensive effort to do so. And so as you move into implementation, those are some things that you're going to be looking at as you know, put together your projects. Basically, you're going to be looking at this data and you're going to be making decisions like, you know, you'll go out there and look at a set of ramps and say, well, you know, this one we can't do anything about because of this slope, or this one was built in 96 and we have a field inspection report that verifies that it was built to the right standard at that time. Or there might be certain situations where you say, yeah, you know, this sidewalk has this problem, but it's not as severe as this sidewalk over here, so we're going to table this for now. So there's a lot of caveats to that 116 million, and in the report, we actually recommend looking at the amount of money that it would take to fix the very high priority barriers, and that I believe that was about 10 million. And so, you know, looking at the amount of money that you are already putting towards ADA, and then looking at that 10 million, you know, what you want to do really is to decide on a level, you know, a transition schedule, basically a number of years with a dollar amount, you know, for increased funding, and then chunk it off into 5-year increments. And at the end of those 5 years, take a look back and say, you know, ground truth the report, ground truth the plan, and say, you know, we originally planned on this costing $10 million, but based on the experience of the last 5 years, we think it's this. You know, so there's this was a very high level network analysis of the city, and it's basically a starting point. and something to just to kind of give you an idea, a general network level idea of where you're at, and how you can start to, eat bite-sized portions of this elephant. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, council, any other questions for either Mark or Mr. Peterson? Okay, Mark, Mr. Peterson, thank you so much for your presentation tonight and taking the questions from council.
Thank you.
All right, Aaron, do you have anything further?
Nope, that was it for the study session.
Okay. All right, council, let's go ahead and meet back here in about 32 minutes from now for our regular council meeting.
Okay, just a second.
All right, council, staff, and members of the community. Welcome to the December 6, 2021 Battleground City Council meeting. I'd like for you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, if I can have the city clerk, please take roll.
Mayor Cortez,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Johnson,
Yes, ma'am.
Council Members Walters,
Here.
Bowman,
Yes.
Davis,
Here.
DeRochers,
Here.
and Munson.
Here.
All right, council member reports. Council. Deputy Mayor Johnson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I completed my 9th annual business visit this past week. I spoke with Ms. Erdman about what we picked up. Mostly what we picked up was people are unhappy with their water bill, the commercial water bill. And so, you know, kind of gave Ms. Erdman's card to them, said, you know, give her a call, but for the most part, the water bill is what the water bill is. And so I assume no one called you, Ms. Erdman.
No, I haven't heard anything about it.
Yeah, so I think I spent 2.5 days, and I think I hit about 80% of the businesses. And then I did notice that there were a lot of folks that were still with us that lasted through the pandemic. There were some new people that I met, and then there were some new people in some old businesses. So the other people had sold and new people had bought their businesses. So on the whole, everyone seems to be happy with the city, the way we're going. The people in Old Town would like us to try to calm down the skateboarders and bicyclists, but other than that, they too are pleased with us. So on the whole, just like the previous years, everyone seems to be pretty happy with the way we're running the ship. So good news for us.
And also to follow up on that too, Mr. Johnson, you had indicated that Northwest Ambush had some issues with the skate park. So Kim Cedarholm has been working with them directly.
Thank you.
Identify some of the issues. So we'll be making a report back to council regarding that as well.
Well, and just for the council's, I hate to use the word edification, but Northwest Ambush is our skateboard people. By putting in the fence, the way we put in the fence, we made it somewhat more risky. I don't want to say dangerous, risky for some of the tricks that these fellows and young women, young men do. So I'm glad to hear she went to talk with them. Hopefully we can get this sorted out, maybe move here, move there, and make it a better place. And again, I did not realize, and they really hammered me on the thought that this is like on the West Coast in the top 10, top 5 of skateboard places. So, and there's some kid whose name escapes me who has made a killing out of this skateboard park on YouTube and that kind of thing. So some 14, 15-year-old who's going to buy us all out someday. So I appreciate that, Ms. Erdman, and hopefully we'll hear from that soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Johnson. It always amazes me when you do the business walk that you can accomplish all that. So thank you so much
For an old man, especially.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks.
Oh, I say it in jest, but thank you very much for doing that. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and move to the mayor's report. I don't have much to report on this evening, council. I had my final mayor's dinner of 2021 Sunday with all the mayors. I got to meet the new mayor of Camas and the new mayor of Washougal, so that was kind of interesting. One interesting fact that I didn't realize, but apparently we all know how dysfunctional it is at the county, and they can't tell the top from the bottom over there. But apparently it's gotten to the point where Vancouver is now going to be moving forward on a very aggressive annexation push, where they're going to be basically taking up big chunks of the county and incorporating it. And so they may be more in the leadership role than the county itself once everything is said and done. So I found that eyebrow raising and interesting. I'm not sure how and if that will affect us moving forward, but I'm sure we'll hear about it in the weeks, months, and years to come. So, all right, that's all I have to report on in my mayor's report. Council, I have a proclamation that I'd like to go ahead and read into record. This is a proclamation on the Bill of Rights. It begins by saying, whereas our nation was founded on the idea that each of us is endowed with certain inalienable rights as stated in our Declaration of Independence. Among those are the freedoms of speech, religion, and human rights. And whereas first introduced in 1789, the Bill of Rights was born out of compromise. And whereas the first 10 amendments is a charter of personal liberty and human dignity, which were ratified on December 15th, 1791. And whereas it is fitting to remember sacrifices made and not to take these rights for granted, as we set apart this day of remembrance of all that has been gained. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Adrian Cortez, do hereby proclaim December 15th, 2021 as Bill of Rights Day in the city of Battle Ground. And I ask all citizens to reaffirm our commitment to defend the Bill of Rights and celebrate as a nation our legacy and resolve to pass to our children an America worthy of our founders' vision. And now moving on, council, the next item that I'd like to bring to discussion, Council Member Bowman reached out to me and requested that I add the discussion of a salary commission. We did talk about this, I want to say very early on this year, and decided we were going to have, Councilmember Bowman reminded me that we were going to have this discussion later towards the end of the year. So he asked that I add this to the agenda, which I have. So I will turn it over briefly to Councilmember Bowman to say a few words on this, and then I believe we have our city manager that will talk about some of the items that were in your packet. So Councilmember Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So for those of you that are new to council, there's two ways that council salaries or benefits increase. One is council can increase them. When they do that, they do not take effect until the next election that you are elected. The second way, and a lot of agencies and jurisdictions are doing this, is they turn it over to a salary commission. Salary commission is any number, 3 to 5, 7 people that are appointed to sit and to discuss compensation of council members. And they can, when they do that, it takes it out of the hand of council. So council is not voting in their own raises, but a salary commission is recommending, and they can be, they don't have to be, but they are, they can make them immediate, or it would affect everybody. So one of the issues that we've had, we did 2 years ago, we did a salary bump, and 2 years before that, we did a salary bump to bring council pay up to, and those are the first bumps that had been done since, I think, the late 90s, if I remember right. Mr. Johnson knows better than I do. But what this would do is it would allow a commission to meet yearly or twice a year or quarterly or whatever, and they make those recommendations, and it kind of takes it out of our hands where people don't think we're giving our own pay raises. We let someone else do it. And I know that that is can be an issue. One of the other issues that we have is the Association of Washington Cities, and I've been working with them on a couple different things, but one of the things I've been working with them on is their trust board, which we as a city have our benefits through. It's a benefit trust board. And if you, the council has benefits now for insurance or for vision and dental, but AWC considers us a separate group. They don't consider us employees of the city. They consider us a separate group. And even though we have to meet certain thresholds as a group, and there's some different clarifications that they require that in order to use their insurance. So what it does is it ties the city in what they can provide for the city council to one policy, unless more than 50% of us take it. And so a salary commission saying, yeah, you can have the benefits. AWC looks at that differently than if council takes it. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to stay that way with AWC. They're looking at that right now because they have more and more councils taking the benefits. And so it was mainly put in place with strong mayors, because strong mayors were administrators and they could get the benefits right away when they were elected. So that's one of the things that the salary commission looks at. But mostly what it does, it just takes the political side of it. It became a hot thing a couple of years ago. I know no one wants to sit down and discuss council compensation, those type of things. And it puts it on people that are in our community to make that decision instead of us. So if there's any questions or what the city manager has, she can answer them too.
Thank you, Councilmember Bowman. And then if I could have the city manager kind of make a brief summary of what was already provided to council.
Yes, so in your packet, there is a draft salary commission ordinance. We did have a salary commission that was established previously. It was repealed back in 2014. So I guess some of the main questions tonight in front of you are going to be, one, do we want to move forward with reestablishing the salary commission? That would then be the adoption of this presented ordinance. It would add the language back into the code. We did kind of mirror this off the city of Edmonds. They have been successful in working with AWC to waive the requirement, as Mr. Bowman was indicating. So the few questions that we have in regards to moving forward was, is this something you're wanting to do? If so, we need to identify how many members you would like to have on the salary commission. This is currently written to have 3 members. We need to set terms for those members. It's currently stated that they would have 3-year terms and that they would be staggered at the very beginning. We also need to identify the frequency of meetings. I saw several different examples of this, one being that they met annually, some said they met every other year, odd or even year, and so forth. So that would be one decision that we would need to look at. And then the number of terms they're allowed to serve. So this is currently written that they would serve no more than 2 consecutive terms. So this is in front of you for further discussion.
All right, thank you, Aaron, for that. If you can take the screen share off for momentarily. Okay, so council, I'd like to open it up. First of all, maybe the better question I ask is, after you reviewed this proposed ordinance, any issues on the ordinance itself or any particular items within the ordinance, as Aaron pointed out? Councilmember Walters.
I just have a question on who would be the one to appoint the members? How would that be determined?
I'm sorry, I lost my VPN, so I'm pulling it back up. It is written into the ordinance, and I believe it says the mayor makes the selection and is approved by the council.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And if I can jump in just briefly on this, that is correct. That's how it's currently written. Again, council would have determination on that. In addition to some of the things that Aaron highlighted, we would also want to make sure that council has reviewed the proposed process for not only how often a salary commission meets, but what happens once they've made their findings, how those findings come to fruition. There's a pretty detailed option there for both salary and benefits, but that is not binding on council. So we want to make sure that council is comfortable with what that looks like. The RCW doesn't set out what that is. So we have pretty significant leeway there.
Councilmember Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The one thing that I think is I like them meeting at least twice a year. I don't think every other year. If you're doing every other year, you might as well just let council continue to do it. But I think twice a year is good. And there was one other thing. I like 3 to start with. And I do like the 2, I like the 2 terms. And hopefully by then, like most boards and commissions that we have, it's hard to get people to serve on them. But I do think do we have in there, I'm trying to see real quick, do we have in there that they must be from the city? Yes, a resident of the city, yes. So I do like that also.
Yeah, go ahead and jump in, Ms. Christine.
I apologize to keep, this is your guys. I just want to make sure that we're, if we're going to come to consensus, that we're all kind of on the same page. So to clarify, Mr. Bowman, to make sure I'm understanding your proposal, if we look under the currently proposed 2-86030, that's where it outlines duties. It currently provides that they would meet annually, but that the commission itself would determine the number of meetings necessary. But how it's currently written is that their duty basically to make a recommendation would happen annually, and that they would have to make the recommendation no later than September 30th of each year. They are supposed to start meeting by July 1st, and they're obligated to hold at least 2 public hearings. So when you're saying meet at least twice a year, are you suggesting that they would look at the salary twice a year, that they would do this process twice?
That's up to them, but one of the things when we did this before, one of the things that was in there, and the reason the September 30th was in there was because it could be budgeted for the next year, right?
Right.
But when you're dealing with the salary commission can make, if we truly open it up like a salary commission should be, they could make it tomorrow. They could meet today, make it tomorrow, right? They can meet today and make it the end of next year, right? So
Or when it goes into effect, you mean?
when it goes into effect.
Yes, that is correct. Yes.
And so I think you leave that to the salary commission, but they should at least meet, like I would say twice a year. The second one no later than September 30th, because that would affect, well, I would, September 30th would still give it time to be into the budget, but they should meet probably in January and August, something like that, and discuss whatever it is they discuss. Maybe the meetings are nothing, maybe they are something, but that way, it's not every other year. The only reason we put September 30th in there the first time was because of the current, because they figured, well, it would go into effect the next year, but salary commissions can do it anytime they want.
Correct. So the way it would be written right now, they would do their process annually as opposed to every other year. Sounds like what you're suggesting is to remove that it starts at July 1st and just say that they have to be finished by September 30th. The way it's written right now, it's going to require them to have at least 2 public hearings. So they would have to meet a minimum of 2 times. Though they'd have to meet more than that because they'd have to prepare for the public hearings. And it provides that they have to provide the proposed salary schedule no later than September 30th. Okay, so you would just basically be proposing take out that July 1st start date, leave it to them. They have to be done by September 30th and they can have meetings whenever.
Yeah, because they may have more meetings than that. They especially a new salary commission that is trying to figure out, what their roles and responsibilities are. They may meet sooner and have more meetings to figure those things out and to get all the information that they want to get. One of the things that we didn't do last time is maybe it doesn't need to be wrote in there, but having the salary commission reach out to council, having the salary commission reach out to the city manager or them. They only took the information that was given to them in the meetings, and so having the opportunity to do more than just sit in that meeting and find out what is it that Deputy Mayor Johnson does. Does he just go to a meeting on the first and third Monday of the month, or does he does he spend X amount of time doing other things? What is it the mayor does? What is it, each council member does? And not just go off of, their 2 meetings a month.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilmember Bowman. Anybody else? Okay, so council, or Mayor Bowman, I know you're the one that spoke up on the, I think you had one suggestion, or was it 2 or 1 suggestion on the current ordinance that's proposed?
Yeah,
yeah, I look, if you'd like to make a motion tonight to make changes on a proposed ordinance, you're more than welcome to.
I'd like to make a motion on, let me get back to ordinance 2021-40 with the proposed changes of removing the July 1st, but leaving the September 30th in 2.86.030.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Councilmember DeRochers. And if I can have the council this evening, we're going to do something a little bit slightly different on our voting, just because we have such a full agenda. If I can have you direct message the city clerk your vote, so yay or nay, and then she will tally everything up so she could organize it all correctly for us and tally up the results. So at this time, go ahead and direct message the city clerk your vote, and then she will reveal the results.
you want me to read each council member or just the total?
We will need to read each council member.
Each council member, yeah.
Councilmember Walters, yes. Bowman, yes. Deputy Mayor Johnson, yes. Mayor Cortez, yes. Councilmember Davis, yes. DeRochers, yes. Munson, no.
Okay, ordinance passes. All right, moving on to our next item, council. We have two small changes to the agenda this evening, council. Two late agenda changes to the meeting tonight. So I'd like to first start off with the first one. I'd like to make a motion to amend tonight's agenda to add a presentation and possible motion regarding the 502, 503 right-of-way purchase approval to tonight's business items as they are the final business item. So that's my motion. I look for a second.
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember Bowman. And then, yes, Councilmember DeRochers.
Okay, I'm sorry. What are we doing? We're just moving it, the order?
No, we're adding the 502, 503 right-of-way purchase approval to tonight's, because when the agenda went out, it wasn't on there.
Okay, so we're adding a new item.
Yes,
Sorry, I have a cold and I can't think
no
straight.
worries, no worries.
Like not getting it, but okay, thank you.
Yeah, just we're adding an item, so. Okay, so go ahead and direct message your vote to the city clerk.
Okay, so Mayor Cortez, yes. Deputy Mayor Johnson, yes. Council members Bowman, yes. Davis, yes. DeRochers, yes. Munson, yes. Walters, no.
Okay, thank you, council. And then the last item I'd like to make a motion on tonight. Council, as you know, we have an executive session at the very end of tonight's council meeting. And because we have a very, very full council meeting with a lot of items on there, I'd like to move it up to immediately upon the conclusion of the citizens communication. So we all have as fresh of minds as possible to tackle that item in there. So I'd like to make a motion to amend tonight's agenda to enter into executive session pursuant to RCW 42.30.110 for approximately 30 minutes with possible action to follow immediately after the conclusion of the citizens communication. So look to take a second on that motion.
Second.
Second.
I have a second by Councilman DeRochers. Go ahead, discussion. Okay, go ahead and message your vote to the city clerk.
Okay. Council members DeRochers, yes. Davis, yes. Bowman, yes. Munson, no. Walters, yes. Mayor Cortez, yes. And Deputy Mayor Johnson, yes.
All right. Thank you, council. So I appreciate the amending the agenda on those two items. So moving on to our next item, we have a new hire introduction. I will go ahead and turn it over to our city manager, I believe, or is it to make this introduction?
We're gonna let Mr. Hersig do this.
Okay, great.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I'm going to introduce you to Keegan Frazier. He's our new hire in operations in the drainage division. He was born and raised in Clark County on a 5-acre farm. He was homeschooled up until 5th grade, and then he went to River Home Link and Running Start. And so he got an associate's degree by doing that. He actually started with us as a seasonal worker. And when the vacancy came open in drainage, he applied and was able to get the job. In his free time, he likes reloading ammo and target shooting. And he looks forward to a career with Battlegrounds. And Keegan, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I'm very thankful for this opportunity to introduce myself. And I look forward to my new career with the city of Battleground. Thank you.
All right, Keegan, welcome to the city. Look forward to you really being able to add a lot of value to our community. So thank you and welcome aboard.
Thank you very
All
much.
right. All right, moving on to our next item. This one, I believe I will turn over to our city manager. This is on the item about fluoride. And so I believe we have some comments that have been received and need to be read into the record. But first, I'll go and turn over to our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor Cortez. Yes, it was brought up at the last meeting about the potential of removing fluoride from our water system. We requested as staff that we have a little bit of time to do some more research on what process we should use to do this. We've reached out to MRSC. We did find out that this was put in place via vote of the people back in 1962. After having MRSC look into this a little bit more on how to remove that, they would typically recommend that it be removed the same way it was put in place. However, back in 1962, we were a town at the time, and it was an advisory vote. So with that, since we are now a code city and the voting is a little bit differently, they recommended that we didn't need to follow that same process. There is a lot of statute on how to add fluoride to the water, but nothing really about how to remove it. But it is clear through the RCW that it is an administrative decision to be handled by council. So the main thing that we want to figure out tonight is one, first, most importantly, do we have consensus from council that we want to move forward with this process? And if that is the case, then the second thing that we need to decide is what type of process we would like to do to accomplish that. It's highly suggested that we do a public process so that we receive as much public comment and input as possible, but that is completely up to you guys. So I will turn it back over to you. I don't know if you want us to read the comments into the record at this time and then go from there, or how you'd like to proceed.
Yes, let's go ahead and read those comments into the record, and then we'll open up for council discussion.
The first comes from Dr. Kurt Ferre. I'm a retired dentist from Portland, a city that I've called home for 41 years. I became an advocate for public health and fluoridation in 1999 when I did my first volunteer dental care for low-income children. I had to extract a severely abscessed 6-year permanent molar on a 9-year-old boy who told me that he couldn't remember how long the tooth had been hurting him. This didn't set well with me, and on my drive home, I couldn't get this young man out of my mind. He didn't choose who his parents were or what his socioeconomic status was. He was born into, but the figurative brick between my eyes was that my 2 daughters, whose mother is a pediatrician and their father a dentist, would never ever have to experience this kind of dental pain. This was a defining moment in my professional career, and I began my growing passion for public health. So what is public health? It is a population-based strategy focused on the community, not on the individual, and it values the collective good. Fluoridation is the ideal public health program because there is no change of behavior required. No hands-on professional, just drinking small amounts of fluoridated water throughout the day as protections against cavities. Fluoride is the 13th most common element in the Earth's crust, and fluoridation is a 20th century adaptation of a naturally occurring process. What fluoridation does is it raises the threshold at which the enamel succumbs to the acid sugar challenges in our Western diet. Yes, toothpaste has fluoride, and with fluoridation, they work together to protect against cavities. When airbags were introduced to cars, we didn't get rid of the seatbelts. Together, they protect against serious injury. No one can know everything about all things, and where one goes for information is critically important. With the internet today, we have all witnessed the misinformation, half-truths, and conspiracy theories about COVID. Fluoridation, despite the fact that it enjoys the overwhelming scientific consensus by every well-known scientific research, public health, medical, and dental organizations, often suffers the same fate. In the 2011, the Calgary, Alberta City Council made an ill-advised decision to stop fluoridation, and the cavity rate in children rose over 150%. Just 6 weeks ago, the residents voted to return fluoridation to the city of 1.2 million people by a whopping margin of 62% to 38%. And yes, the opponents to fluoridation threw everything but the kitchen sink to confuse and cause fear to the general public. One cannot have good health without good oral health, and your city invests $32,000 annually to bring fluoridation to your 22,800 residents, which is only $1.40 for each of them. I leave you with this thought on the role of government. It was once said that the moral test of government is how that government treats those who are in the dawn of life, the children, those who are in the twilight of life, the elderly, and those who are in the shadows of life, the sick, the needy, and the handicapped. Fluoridation works for everyone, not just children. I urge you to continue this valuable public health measure in your fine city. Thank you. This is from Dr. Gary Waldron. I have been made aware that the City Council of Battleground is giving serious consideration to the elimination of fluoride from your public water system. I humbly suggest that this goes against the known benefits of fluoride in water, backed up with 75 years of research on the subject. I believe that this would compromise the dental health of the community at large and therefore be a big mistake. I understand that there has been discussions regarding the dependence of fluoride in toothpaste and to fluoride rinses as being equal, but that is certainly not the case. Fluoride in the water results in it being integrated into the tooth structure during tooth development, resulting in the least costly method of delivery. The other forms of fluoride application are still important as an adjunct to good caries prevention, but are also important, but not as the primary method of delivery. If you were building a wall, would you consider removing the rebar from the internal aspects of the structure and put it on the outside and expect the same strength? Please consider what the American Dental Association has to offer on the subject, and there were contacts and the website included. From Dr. Stephen Hockett, community water fluoridation would be effective in improving the oral health of Battleground residents. It is the single most effective measure a community can take to prevent tooth decay and specifically help with tooth cavity prevention. Many research studies have proven the safety and benefits of supplemental fluoride in water supplies. For 70 years, people in the United States have benefited from drinking water with fluoride, leading to better dental health. Community water fluoridation is recommended by nearly all public health, medical, and dental organizations. It is recommended by the American Dental Association, American Academy of Pediatrics, U.S. Public Health Service, and the World Health Organization. Drinking fluoridated water keeps teeth strong and reduces tooth decay. According to the American Dental Association, more than 70 years of scientific research has consistently shown that an optimal level of fluoride in community water is safe and effective in preventing cavities by at least 25% in both children and adults. By preventing cavities, community water fluoridation has been shown to save money for families and for the U.S. healthcare system. Oral health in the United States is much better today than it was many years ago, but cavities are still one of the most common chronic diseases of childhood. Community water fluoridation is the most cost-effective way to deliver fluoride to people of all ages, education levels, and income levels who live in a community. Most water has some fluoride, but usually not enough to prevent cavities. Community water systems can add the right amount of fluoride to the local drinking water to prevent cavities. Because of its contribution to the large decline in cavities in the United States since the 1960s, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention named community water fluoridation one of the 10 great public health achievements of the 20th century. I believe fluoridation must ultimately be a community-based decision. Let's not step over dollars to pick up pennies on this very important community issue. Thank you for the opportunity to voice an opinion on this proposal. From Emily Lovell, she's the Director of Government Affairs, Washington State Dental Association. On behalf of the Washington State Dental Association, I'm writing to support the continued practice of optimally fluoridating your community's water supply. Over 100 national and international health organizations, including the Centers for Disease Control and the World Health Organization, support community water fluoridation. With more than 75 years of community water fluoridation in the United States, water fluoridation has been proven to be one of the safest and most effective methods of delivering fluoride to members of a community. Fluoride is a naturally occurring mineral found in all water supplies that, when set to optimal levels, is effective in reducing dental decay by at least 25% in children and adults. Community water fluoridation has received strong support from key policymakers in Washington state and nationally. In 2016, former U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy stated that water fluoridation is the best method for delivering fluoride to all members of the community, regardless of age, education, income level, or access to routine dental care. Further, the CDC has celebrated water fluoridation as one of the 10 great public health achievements of the 20th century. During your last meeting, there was a great deal of discussion concerning the cost of fluoridate water and potential savings associated with discontinuing water fluoridation. As such, it bears repeating that community water fluoridation is one of the most cost-effective, safe, and equitable measures communities can take to prevent decay and improve the oral health of its citizens, and economic evaluations continue to reaffirm the cost benefits of community water fluoridation. It is my sincere hope that Battleground will continue to provide its citizens with this valuable resource that saves money, both for families and the healthcare system. And lastly, from Dr. Carl Rose, I am writing after seeing that fluoride is on the agenda for the 12/16 meeting. I am in support of maintaining the supplemental fluoride in the Battleground city water supply. In my 20 years of working as a general dentist, I have consistently seen more extensive dental decay in children that live in non-fluoridated water communities compared to those that have fluoride in their drinking water. From a personal business perspective, there is no advantage of maintaining fluoride in our city water supply. Undoubtedly, there will be more dental work needed on my pediatric patients if the Battleground City Council decides to stop water fluoridation. It is more important to me, though, that we continue this significant public health benefit, which helps keep dental decay down to a manageable level. Continuing to utilize this naturally occurring mineral in our drinking water is the right thing to do. I ask the councilors to consider the dental health benefits of our children in our community before voting on this important matter. My apologies for missing that line.
No worries at all. Right? You did phenomenal. So I believe we have two members in our two audience members that would like to say, have a few words. So if you can try to limit your comments to, 3 minutes. And I think the first gentleman, I believe it's Elder Jensen. Are you there?
Yeah, sorry. It's actually Dr. Conway Jensen, pediatric dentist in Battleground.
Dr. Jensen. Yes, my apologies. Dr. Jensen, you have the floor.
Yeah, so my name's Dr. Jensen. I am a board certified pediatric dentist, so all I see is children. I also serve as on the American Board of Pediatric Dentistry. So if you want to talk about fluoride in children, I'm your expert. I'm just like to point out a couple of things. I won't go to the science behind it, but if you would just kind of bear with me for a second. I would just like to share that, I've been here since 2006, been serving the community since then. And I believe 2013, Woodland decided to stop fluoridating their community. And so I would like to point out that ever since they did that, there's been a rate of caries of over 50%. So if you take a population of 100 children, if 50 of those had cavities during that time, you double that since they stopped fluoridating that area. So I would just like to point that out. Also, before I came to this area, I was working in Oregon where they did not fluoridate their community. And the caries rate or cavity rate was double that of when I started here in Battleground. So there is a significant difference of fluoridated versus non-fluoridated in children with caries or cavities. So I just wanted to point out how important that is, because if you think about our population of children, we're already in an area of underserved kids, meaning that children in this area are already having a problem finding correct dental care. Being the only pediatric dentist here, I see that quite a bit, as a lot of general dentists are either, afraid or unqualified or don't feel adequate to treat young children. I know it's important that we take care of those kids. So I just wanted to just share that. Wanted to share my opinion on that. And just kind of keep that in mind as you make those decisions, because you're not only affecting the kids, but remember, kids grow up, and having proper dental care, that affects many things in their life. It's been associated with cardiac disease and all sorts of other issues. So, the choices that you're making now for these children, because the fluoridated water is not going to affect adults, you're affecting, our future generations here. So if you could keep that in mind, it has a long-standing effect. That one doctor mentioned Calgary, Alberta. It just happens to be that I grew up in Calgary, Alberta. And I remember when I was a child in 1971, they decided to fluoridate. The caries rate went down, and then they decided to stop that. I just happened to be there at that time as well, and noticed that huge significant change as well. So the science is there. But we don't need to talk about the science. I just wanted to share the my thoughts on that. You have to excuse me. I have a really bad cold, so I'm having a hard time talking clearly. But anyways, I just wanted to share my opinions on that. And I just wanted to say, please make a good choice. We're a community here. We love our community, and I just wanted to share that with you. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Jensen. Appreciate your comments on that. I believe we have another gentleman, Ron Sue. Am I pronouncing that last name correctly?
Yes. Hi. Yes, Ron. I was the pediatric dentist for General Dental up there in Battleground from 2006 to 2016 for 10 years, and as has a lot of the dentists have already mentioned, that there is a difference between those who live in the city and those who live just out. I'm talking about Amboy, Yakult, Brush Prairie, and that gap between Battleground and the 119 503, that dip.
I think we lost him.
Okay. Ron, are you there?
The difference between cavity rate, and I'm thinking the impetus of trying to take it out probably is twofold. One, people feel like they don't want to get, they want to have a say whether or not they get substance in their water, and I completely understand that. They probably read a lot of stuff that talks about potential harm. I just want to say that to actually reach harmful levels, you'll have to be sucking down tubes of toothpaste for.
Looks like Ron, it says Ron left. Thank you, Ron, for those comments. We appreciate them. Sorry that the technology cut you off there, but I think we got the gist of your comments to council. Okay, so let's go ahead. Council discussion on this. Remember, our city manager is looking for number one, direction on whether we should move this forward or not. And then after we answer that question, then there's a series of other things. So, Councilmember DeRochers.
Okay, well, maybe it was too easy for me, but they made some compelling cases there about the importance of fluoridation, that I'd be okay with just leaving it in the water, not making a decision to remove it. I was really interested in hearing about fluoridated water supply compared to unfluoridated, and they covered that they definitely noticed a difference. So I'm not not interested unless we do a vote, I guess. So kind of just took a little bit of education. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember DeRochers. Councilmember Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to thank those that actually came tonight and testified, and those that took time to write in. I reached out to, I got a family member that's a periodontist in Phoenix, and I reached out to a friend that's an orthodontist, and both of them said the same thing, and I think this is important. And I heard Dr. Jensen say this tonight. It's not about the science. The science has been proven. The science has been proven for over 60 years. And I think one of them made a comment to me that the American Dental Association will not argue that anymore. They're tired of arguing the science of fluoride. They can prove it. They can show it. We've heard tonight of the instances where it is there and where it isn't there, and what that does for kids. The comment that struck me, and Councilmember DeRochers touched on this a little bit, but one of my friends said, "You take it away, and we will see tenfold, maybe even more, in cases with young kids and some of them underserved kids that have tooth issues." And he made the point. He said, "Why would we, as an organization, why would dentists," and Mr. Rose made this point in his letter tonight, why would dentists fight this when they're going to make $300 a cavity, or they're you know?" And so it must mean something when they're saying, "Hey, look, they care about the health of these kids. They care about the health of their teeth and what it does later on in life." And so I think that is the key to this. Is it's $35,000, yeah, but what it could cost our citizens, and if we have 100% increase, like the city of Woodland, like he just said, if we have 100% increase, what that costs our citizens, because not everybody has dental insurance, not everybody has the ability or has the means to take their kids in to do this, or you have a child like I do, and I talked to the deputy mayor about this, that she will eat candy all day long, but try and sit down and brush her teeth and you got to fight. And so, you know, it's nice to know that there's something else there to kind of help me out, because it's a battle when these kids are young. And so I think it's something that's positive for the community. I don't think I did quite a bit of studying on this, and the list of agencies that endorse this is amazing, from every medical industry you can think of. So I, like Mr. Rogers, think that we should not move this on. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Johnson.
Mr. Mayor, you know, there's a lot of communication in this world. There's three of them that I can think of, and that's telegraph, telephone, teledentist. I've been contacted by many of them, as you can imagine. I will state some things though here, just for the record. In Clark County, there are only 3 cities that fluoridate the water: Camas, Vancouver, and us. That's roughly a half of the population of the county. So and I'm not going to question the dentist's facts or anything like that, but we must have just a tremendous amount of tooth decay in Hazeldale, in Hawkinson, in these places where there is no fluoridation. And then if you go out to the Washington State Health Department's site, there are 2 cities on the east side of the Cascades that fluoridate water, and beyond that, there are none. So half the state is obviously underserved by this. And so I'll drop what's coming, but it is interesting to me, and I stated in some of my return emails to these doctors that I don't hear a hue and cry across this community or across Clark County as a whole to fluoridate the water. I don't see dentists down at the county banging on the table I don't see them in Ridgefield, in the center, in Washougal, banging on the table, stating, fluoridate the water. And so I'll drop this, and I really, we can vote on it and just be done with it if you wish. But I'm like, Dr. Ron mentioned it, and I'm one of those people who thinks that the least chemicals that we add to our water, the better off we are as a society. And so I'll stipulate the fact of fluoride that the dentists have presented, but it's still my desire in the long run that we quit, other than chlorine or whatever else is required by the EPA for our water, that we just stop adding stuff to the water. So I appreciate the time this evening, and have the vote if you like, and I'll withdraw the motion if that will help, and we can just move on.
Okay, anybody else? Councilmember DeRochers.
Yeah, I just want to say, if anybody has information that shows the difference between the unfluorinated areas and the fluorinated, it would be really interesting to see. That is kind of what sold me on it, is the huge difference in the different municipalities. And then when they removed it, I came out earlier today, I was thinking about how I've lived in Battleground since I was 8, and I have cavities. So I was thinking, well, it doesn't work. Then I realized it could have been 25% worse had I not had fluoride. So anyways, I really do appreciate everybody that spoke as well, because obviously they're professionals and they know what they're talking about, and I value what they've said. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? So council, as far as consensus on moving this forward, give me a thumbs up if you want to move this forward, thumbs down if you want to just kill it. Okay, I'm seeing consensus not to move this forward, Ms. Erdman.
Yeah, that's what I saw too. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that will end discussion on this item. Okay, next up is citizens communications. I will ask the city clerk if there are any citizens communications that have been received to read into record, obviously
Yes,
above
sir.
and beyond what you've already received.
Yes, sir, I have. There are two. They're both from Mr. Shannon, Doug Shannon.
Okay.
And they're both regarding the budget and the transportation system. This first one is the land needed to construct the proposed Northwest 5th Street connecting Parkway Boulevard to SR 503 is owned by Battleground Public Schools. I would like the city manager, Erdman, to address the specific steps that the city would take to acquire that land in the scenario where Battleground Public Schools refuses to sell it. And then his second goes on to state, I am requesting that one of the city councilors make the following motion with another seconding. I would like to make the motion that all families in Battleground be included in any and all outreach communications regarding City Road Project BG 11-08D, also known as Northwest 5th Street, as well as being formally invited by mail to any and all open houses for said road. The additional monies needed to pay for such communications will come from the $900,000 that is allocated for the City Road Project BG 11-08D, also known as Northwest 5th Street. The justification for the additional outreach and open house communication expense is that all citizens in Battleground use the recreational fields that are threatened by the proposed Northwest 5th Street.
Okay, thank you very much for reading those into record. Okay, at this time, I'll go ahead and close the citizens communications and move on to our executive session. So pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, the City Council of the City of Battleground will adjourn into executive session to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment or to review the performance of a public employee. Any final action on hiring or setting or salary or wages will take place in a meeting open to the public. This executive session is anticipated to last approximately 30 minutes with possible action to follow. And then, council, you have the link that has been sent to you for the executive session meeting. So I will see everybody there in about a minute or two.
Kay, are you there?
Yes.
Can we extend by another 30 minutes, please?
Oops. I'm sorry, can you say that again, please?
Can we extend by another 30 minutes, please?
Okay, we have it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I believe we're still waiting on the deputy mayor. Not seeing him yet.
Sorry, I forgot to cut the video on.
Oh, there you are. Okay, thank you. All right, we are adjourned from executive session and there is no action that it is following. So we will move on to our next item on the agenda. Council, I have the consent agenda before you. Look for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion to approve by Councilmember Bowman and a second by Councilmember Munson. Please go ahead and send in your vote to the city clerk.
The vote is unanimous with all council members voting yes.
Okay, thank you, council. Moving on to our first public hearing of the evening. This is ordinance number 2021-26. This is our budget. This will be a public hearing and a possible motion to follow. Our finance director will give us a recap and we will consider public testimony on our budget. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Lowry.
Good evening, council. So tonight is our second public hearing related to the 2022 budget. The budget tonight that council will be reviewing is not including the code enforcement officer. That FTE has been taken out of that budget. So our recommendation is that we open the public hearing.
All right, thank you. And at this time, I will go ahead and open up the public hearing for our budget. I'll ask the city clerk if she's received any comments to be read into record.
No, sir.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to talk about our budget? Have any input on it? Going once, going twice. All right. I'll go and close our public testimony for our budget and open it up to council. Council. All right. Councilmember Bowman.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-26 budget as presented.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember DeRochers. If I can get the city clerk to please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance number 21-26, an ordinance adopting the 2022 budget for the city of Battle Ground, Washington, and providing for an effective date thereof.
Thank you. Council, go ahead and send your vote to the city clerk.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
So Councilmember Walters, no. Bowman, yes. Johnson, no. Cortez, yes. Davis, yes. DeRochers, yes. Munson, yes.
All right, our budget passes.
Thank you.
Okay, next item. This is resolution 21-10. This is our 2022 to 2027 6-year TIP amendment. This will be a public hearing and a potential motion. I will go ahead and turn it over to Mark Herzig, our Public Works Director.
Good evening, everyone, again. As we talked about last time, we're essentially amending the TIP to add 3 projects and modify one of the existing projects to be able to collect concurrency mitigation funds for the project. So I don't have anything else to add to that.
Thank you, Mr. Hersig. If I can ask the city clerk, have we received any written comments on this item?
No, sir.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to talk about this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this item and open it up to council discussion. Councilmember Bowman.
Mayor, I'd like to move to approve Resolution 21-10, the 2022 through 2027 6-year TIP amendment.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a second by Councilmember DeRochers. Council, go ahead and send your vote to the city clerk.
Okay. So Councilmember Walters, no. Bowman, yes. Johnson, yes. Cortez, yes. Davis, no. DeRochers, yes. Munson, no.
Okay. According to my ears, which could be fooled, was that 4 yes, 3 no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Resolution passes. Next item. This is Resolution 21-11, the American Rescue Plan Act funding. This is a possible motion. I will turn it over to our Finance and Information Services Director, Ms. Lowry.
Thank you. So this is the resolution which would obligate the $5.9 million of the American Rescue Plan Act funding the city received the first half and will receive the second half next year related to water and sewer infrastructure projects. And a question had been raised at the last council meeting related to what would this do to future rates. So the city would be saving ratepayers an estimated cumulative 16% in future rate increases by funding the 1.46 MG water reservoir and water well upgrades with the ARPA funds. And then with the sewer side, it would be a cumulative rate savings of 6% in the future rate increases. And this is done because by not utilizing current fund balances now, that would free up funds later to pay for those larger projects.
All right, thank you so much for that. Council discussion. Councilmember Walters.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2111, the American Rescue Plan Act funding.
Thank you. I have a motion on the floor and I have a second by Councilmember DeRochers. Any further discussion? Okay, since this is a resolution, go ahead and send your vote to the city clerk. And I should have clarified on that. There doesn't need to be an ordinance title read.
Yes. And this is also a 7-0 vote in favor of, with all council members voting yes.
Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you, council. Next item, this is our resolution 21-12. This is our water use efficiency. I'll turn it over to our Public Works Director again, Mark Hersig.
And I don't have anything to add from our last meeting, so happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay, council discussion. See none, I'll look to entertain a motion. Councilmember Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move to approve resolution 21-12 water use efficiency.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor and I have a second by Councilmember DeRochers. Council, go ahead and send your vote into our city clerk.
And again, this is a 7-0 yes vote from all council members.
All right, another unanimous. Thank you, council. Moving on, this is ordinance number 2021-22. This is our comp plan and zoning amendment. This is a possible motion. I'll go ahead and turn this one over to our community development director, Sam Crummett.
Good evening, council. Before you is the comprehensive plan amendments. Packaged within this decision are 5 separate plan amendments. We've been over these in previous meetings. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer these. Otherwise, I would recommend adopting ordinance 2021-22 as presented.
Thank you, Sam. And I believe we've already had the public hearing on this item in a past council meeting. So council discussion. Councilmember Bowman.
Mr. Mayor, move to adopt ordinance number 2021-22 comprehensive plan and zoning amendment.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember DeRochers is a second. All right. If I can have the city clerk, please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance number 2021-22, an ordinance adopting the annual code amendments to the comprehensive plan and the associated documents to include the official zoning map, comprehensive plan map, parks, chapter 7, 2021 Fire District 3 capital facilities plan and impact fees, 2019 Hawkinson School District capital facilities plan and impact fees, and to adopt by reference the City of Battle Ground 2021 transportation system plan, City of Battle Ground 2021 water system plan, City of Battle Ground 2015 parks, recreation and open space plan as amended pursuant to the Growth Management Act, Chapter 36.70A RCW and Chapter 35A.63 RCW, and establishing an effective date.
Thank you very much, Kay. Council, go ahead and send Kay your vote.
Okay, this vote is Councilmember Walters, no. Bowman, yes. Johnson, yes. Cortez, yes. Davis, yes. DeRochers, yes. Munson, yes.
Okay, ordinance passes. Next item up, this is ordinance number 2021-23. This is our Parks Plan Amendment. This is a possible motion. Turn it over to our Community Development Director, Sam Crummett.
The city has a parks plan. It's a separate document from the comprehensive plan, and therefore it needs its own ordinance for adoption. I've went over the changes in this previously at the October meeting. We've had the public hearing, and this ordinance is number 2021-23. And I'd recommend adopting it as presented.
Thank you. Council discussion. Anybody like to make a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2021-23 Parks Plan Amendment as presented.
Okay, got a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
second by Councilmember DeRochers. And if I can have the city clerk, please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance number 2021-23, an ordinance adopting an amendment to the City of Battleground 2015 Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan pursuant to the Growth Management Act, Chapter 36.70A RCW, and establishing an effective date.
All right, council, please send your vote to your city clerk.
Okay, the vote is Councilmember Munson, no. Walters, yes. Bowman, yes. Johnson, yes. Cortez, yes. Davis, yes. DeRochers, yes.
All right, ordinance passes. Moving on to our next item. This is ordinance number 2021-24. This is our transportation system plan. This is a potential motion. I'll turn it over to our Public Works Director, Mark Hersig.
For the transportation system plan, we haven't made any changes since it was last presented, so I believe it's ready to go. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, council discussion. Anybody like to make a motion?
Mayor moves to approve ordinance number 2021-24 transportation system plan as presented.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember DeRochers. I tell you what, you guys are doing the heavy lifting tonight. Let's go ahead, if I can have the ordinance read by title.
City of Battleground ordinance number 2021-24, an ordinance adopting an updated transportation system plan.
All right, council, please send your vote to the city clerk.
Okay. This is Councilmember Walters, no. Davis, no. Bowman, yes. Johnson, yes. Cortez, yes. DeRochers, yes. Munson, yes.
All right, ordinance passes. Next up, this is ordinance number 2021-25. This is a water system plan. This is a potential motion. I will go ahead and turn it over to our Public Works Director again, Mark Hersig.
Similar to the transportation plan, we haven't made any changes since the last meeting. Just a reminder that once this is approved, it will go to Department of Health for their review. So it's quite likely that we'll see it again next year just to make a few tweaks here and there based on their comments. But at this point, it's ready to go to them. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Council, discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to approve ordinance 2021-25 water system plan as presented.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor and I have a second by Councilmember Walters. If I can have the city clerk, please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance number 2021-25, an ordinance adopting an updated water system plan.
All right, send your vote into the city clerk, please.
This is also unanimous vote in favor of the ordinance, 7-0.
All right, ordinance passes. Next item, this is ordinance number 2021-39, Title 17, West Side Employment District. This is a potential motion. I will turn this one over to our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor Cortez. Again, this one was presented a few meetings ago. We've already had a public hearing on this. It adds zoning regulations for the West Side Employment District that was also adopted with the comp plan changes. So we're here to answer any questions.
All right, council discussion.
We'll add a couple items if I could. Sorry.
Yes, Mr. Crummett, please jump in.
The Planning Commission met on this since you last discussed it, and they did propose a couple changes that I just wanted to highlight. One is they changed the minimum number of jobs per acre from 6 to 4, so they lowered that a little bit. And they also changed 3 of the uses from permitted to conditional approval. Those would be for lounges and taverns, the other is restaurants, and the other would be for drive-through restaurants. So just wanted to convey those changes from the Planning Commission.
Okay, council, any questions for Mr. Crummett or potential motion on the floor?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 2021-39, Title 17, West Side Employment District as
Okay,
presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Councilman DeRochers. Discussion, Deputy Mayor Johnson.
Mr. Crummett, if the idea is employment, why are we down a third? That doesn't make much sense to me. If the idea is to put employees, and of course their bosses or whatever, why do they want to take it down a third?
The Planning Commission's thought on that was they didn't want to restrict potentially a small business that had the capacity to grow. So the idea was to get a business in there that maybe didn't meet that 6 employees per acre with the opportunity that they could grow later.
So and I've read it, but you'll forgive me, I don't remember. Is there a leeway in there for the city to, if I can't come up with 4, but I can come up with 3, is there a leeway from the city to say 3 is okay for now?
Not really. I mean, the city does have what are called variances. However, when you have pretty strict regulations that are specific, it's hard to get away from that. What I did say is there's not a lot of administrative guidance on how that number gets determined up front. But we would, and then how it's monitored over time. But so there would need to be some documentation of having a minimum kind of employee standard, but how that's worked out isn't.
Well, I mean, I can't imagine the city demanding to see the payroll.
No, I can't either. I think typically what we would do is look at it based on square footage and the business's business plan and what their model is. Typically, there's a lot of things we ask for up front in the application, and specifying the anticipated number of employees or jobs is one of them. We would take that likely as sufficient.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any further discussion on this item?
Yeah, Mayor, Sam, I got a couple of questions. Well, first, I guess it's not a question, but I too am concerned that we're moving that down from 6 to 4 per acre. If you're a small startup and you're, say, a half acre, you already can meet the threshold of 3 because it's 6 per acre. So now if we're going down to a half acre and they only need 2. So I don't agree with that. The other one I have a concern is we're looking at creating an employment campus, if you will, right? We're looking for creating industry and jobs over there, but opening the door for taverns, bars, and fast food restaurants opens up the opportunity for us to flood out possible living wage jobs and filling them with minimum wage jobs because we want to add 7, 10 different fast food restaurants in that area. I like the focus that you had initially in this. Not saying that you changed this. I understand it was on the Planning Commission. I would have preferred to see it be left alone. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other further discussion? Okay, please, Aaron, jump in if you have any.
Sam, can you clarify, did they move the restaurants piece from permitted to conditional?
They moved it, correct. They were in there as permitted outright, both the restaurants and the taverns. The one that kind of was debated or had the question mark was the drive-throughs. So they went with commercial for the drive-throughs, and then it made sense to change the other restaurants and taverns to conditional use permit from permitted. And then I will add, to speak to Councilmember Munson's concerns about commercial, the regulations as drafted would prohibit no more than 25% of commercial uses within this district. So there's going to be a cap on that. It does need to be reserved for industry and jobs.
Yeah, thank you. That's where I was headed. And I believe that states is 25% of the development at the time. So not necessarily 25% of the total area, but as it develops, it can never be more than 25%. The way it's written, drafted. Yeah.
Okay.
Just to clarify for Mr. Milton.
I appreciate you clarifying that with me, because it seemed like there was some miscommunication between you and Mr. Crummett, and I was kind of concerned myself. So thank you for clarifying that. Any further council discussion? Okay, seeing none, if I can have the city clerk please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance number 2021-39, an ordinance amending Battleground Municipal Code Title 17 zoning, Chapter 17.120 Light Industrial Employment Campus Districts MLEC.
And Councilmember Walters, looks like you got a quick question.
I do. I don't know if there was ever a second on that motion.
Councilmember DeRocher seconded it.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Any further discussion? Okay, council, please go ahead and send your vote to the city clerk.
Is verified. And this also is a 7-0 in favor motion from all council members.
All right, thank you, council. Now this is our one item that we added to the agenda. This is the SR 502-503 right-of-way acquisition. This is going to be a potential motion. I will go and turn this over to our city manager prior to us discussing this.
Thank you, Mayor Cortez. As you're aware, we've been working to try and require a right-of-way for the 502-503 intersection project. Safeway was the last one that we've been working on. They came back with a counter proposal that is, I actually am going to turn over to Mr. Herseg to go through with you for determination if we would like to move forward with their counter.
So when we purchase right-of-way, we go through an appraisal process to determine fair market value. For Safeway, our determination was $41,450 for the property that we needed. They came back with a counter offer to an add-in administrative settlement of $18,950 to make the total offer $60,400. The city's consultant had reviewed the counter offer and believes that the settlement can be justified for the following reasons. The settlement's based on additional comparables provided by Safeway indicating a land value of $25 per square foot. Our consultant was actually able to negotiate that down to a lesser amount of $20 per square foot, which is the value that's presented here. Settling avoids the cost of eminent domain proceedings. If negotiation is to continue, there would be additional consultant cost, appraisal cost, et cetera. There would be impacts to the construction schedule, which would affect prices. This settlement complies with the provisions of RCW 826.010, which encourages the acquisition of real property for public works programs by reaching agreements with owners to relieve congestion in the courts. So based on all of that, staff recommends that council accept this offer and we move forward with the project.
All right, council discussion. Deputy Mayor Johnson.
What are we buying, Mark?
Essentially, we're taking that closest access to 503, 502, and adding the right turn lane there. So it will extend, I believe, 100, 150 feet past that point. So essentially, you'll remove the sidewalk that's there and push it back further onto Safeway's property. So it's that kind of strip in that area.
So those welcome signs that are in there in that little semicircle, are they gone?
Yeah, those are gone.
And so they lose that access. Will we make them then just everybody go to the light and come out? Or will the second access remain?
The second access remains. So they'll have that access and then the light access.
Okay. And is there any other, can we actually start on something come the summer now?
We'll be out. So if we complete this purchase, we'll be able to certify right of way, and then we'll go to, we'll submit our local agency agreement to go to bid. The plans are done, have been reviewed by the state. So it's just a matter of completing the paperwork and getting this done. So we should hopefully be to bid in January.
And then construction starts in the spring and the summer.
Yeah, it usually takes about 2 months to finish paperwork and all that kind of stuff. So I would suspect if we can get out in January, be March, April when they start construction.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilmember Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For Ms. Erdman, what is the motion you're looking for tonight to authorize the city to enter in an agreement with Safeway for the additional amount?
Yes, for the right-of-way acquisition.
For the right-of-way acquisition?
Yes.
Then I would like to make that motion.
And
Okay,
Mr.
go
Bowman,
ahead.
there's a formal proposed motion in the staff report. If Mr. Hersig would share that, there's some nuances. I think legally speaking, we want to be insurers included in that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Second. I have my old version, Christine. I have to.
I know you all love when I get to add legal words to your mouths.
Okay. The motion would be, I move to authorize the city to purchase the necessary right-of-way and easements needed from Safeway Stores 98 Incorporated to complete the 503-502 intersection improvement project for the purchase price of $60,400, and to authorize the city manager to execute the warranty deed and temporary easement for the 503-502 intersection project.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? I got a second by Councilmember DeRochers. Let's go ahead and send your vote into the city clerk.
And this is a unanimous vote also in favor of that.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, council. Next item, administrative reports.
We have no administrative reports this evening. I think we've tortured you enough for one night.
Okay. Council communications. Council.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to talk to council for just a brief second. We had 9 different votes tonight. 10. Sorry, we just did that last one. We had 9 that were on the agenda, and then that last one. One of the things that's concerning to me, and I think if we look just in tonight's meeting, when we discussed fluoride, Mr. Johnson brought forth fluoride and wanted to talk about it. And we talked about it, and there was people that commented and wrote in and discussed it. And Mr. Johnson made the, I don't know if it was an actual motion, but it said he would remove his motion because of comments that were made and stuff that about the fluoride. My concern is as we're going through our meetings and we have no votes, but no one says anything, and no one talks and says, hey, this is why I'm voting no. There may be, the beauty of the council is we got 7 different people that are looking at the same thing, but in 7 different ways and from their experience. And for me, it doesn't do any good when I get a no vote, but I don't understand why, or you haven't explained when the mayor asked for council questions or anything like that. We're silent on it, and then we're just no. Now maybe you discussed it in a biweekly meeting with the city manager, but it wasn't discussed with council. And so for stuff to get done, I will from now on, if there's a no vote and no one has explained why there's a no vote, then I'm going to ask why there was a no vote, because I would like to know what is the reason behind that no vote to help me. Maybe there's something I missed. The other thing I think we need to look at too is I look at the budget. There's many times, and I'll give you an instance of 2 for sure. I was against, sorry, Christine, hiring an attorney in the city of Battleground. We had a contract. I was against that. I think the deputy mayor was against that at that time too. Since then, I voted for the budget when we hired the attorney. That was council direction. And I forget what the vote was, 4-3, something like that. Still voted for the budget, and I've still voted for the budget since. I've never said, no, I'm a no vote because we hired an attorney. When I was with Little League, they ripped out fields and put in a skate park. I'm not a no vote against parks because there's a skate park there. You can state your opinions, and that's what we're here to do, is state our opinions, and we vote on many things, but it doesn't mean that we kill the budget because or we kill something because we've already stated our opinion, didn't go our way, and now we have to vote on that. And so, my whole thought process on this was from the start was, if we're going to have no votes on the budget, I'll do a no vote, and we'll sit here till February 2nd with the government shut down until people explain why they have no votes and what the issue is, because we owe it to the people to say that in a public meeting. Why do we have an issue with it? Just like we owe it to the people to discuss this thing. So I would hope that in the future we can, if you're going to vote no, that you put out there why you're voting no and let the rest of us know. So, because maybe there's something we missed, but that way we're just not sitting here and counting votes ahead of time and saying, well, I can do this because from now on, I'll put you on the spot and ask why you're voting no. And if we're going to play politics from the dais, that's what we'll do. And let the people know why. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember DeRochers.
Yes, I just want to remind you that the Battleground Senior Citizens have their annual holiday event December 13th at the Battleground Community Center. They're having a luncheon from 11:30 to 2 p.m. Anyone who is over the age of 50 is invited.
Thank you very much. I was going to give you and Mr. Johnson a hard time if you guys didn't bring that up, because that was in my mind too.
There are invites in everyone's boxes.
Yes, thank you very much. Either Mr. Johnson or Councilmember DeRochers, if you put those in mine, I got them. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And if there are going to be 4 of us, Ms. Cameron, let's just go ahead and post that, if you will.
All right, anybody else? Okay, seeing none. Council, our next meeting is December 20th, 2021. Our regular meeting starts at 7 p.m. And have a wonderful and safe week. We are adjourned.